Hi, thank you for reading our chapters. I am Caprice Crebar, and I have one of my favorite people here with me. And I want to thank Grace Richardson for just the opportunity to allow us to share our stories in this incredible book that we hope is very helpful for you if you're someone who's in the face of grief right now. And so my story is about leaving my dad's legacy, like relishing in my dad's legacy. I just recently lost him in April of this year, followed right after that by our very old, wonderful dog. And these griefs were very difficult for our family. There was a lot of lead up as far as illness leading up to it. So we knew these things were coming, which has some benefits in knowing. We had a lot of time to do a lot of fun things. My dad in the last 6 months of his life, we did a lot of fun things with the family, even in a wheelchair. And even though he was in pain, we have some really, really special memories that thank goodness we were able to carry out before he passed and went into hospice. And then we had to say goodbye when he asked us to let him go. And on one hand, our family, we didn't want him to go because he had a very strong mindset. He had a strong will to live. He loved family. He loved his life. And we loved that part of him. That what made our dad our dad. And it's what attracted my mom to him when they were first dating. And so it was hard from that standpoint. But when he asked us to let him go, we understood. And after that, I went into gratitude. I just went into full blown gratitude because he gave myself, my brothers, a tremendous life. He gave my mother a tremendous life. We were very fortunate that he really planned well, for his passing and to leave my mom taken care of. And we're a strong family. Now that doesn't always happen. I have a family member now going through a very different loss. It was tragic. As you'll hear from Lori here, her loss was sudden. And so all losses have equal, they're processes that we all equally have to go through a process of healing. And they can be different, but my family member has a lot of pain in their family. And so it's really been a whole different difficult type of grieving and getting through that. And I would just say, I didn't include this in my chapter, but I would just say that if there are things in the family that dredge up, negative things in the past or disagreements, or that, it's very difficult. And my love goes out to you, as you get through that emotional crisis. I've read myself, because I'm not an expert, that setting some ground rules and giving yourself space outside of drama can really help you to spend that quality time that you need, uh, grieving and going through that process. So the reason why I brought Lori here today is because, when I was losing my dad and my longtime wonderful pet Roscoe, which we're all going to face this, right? One thing that got me through it, um, in a way that it just made it easier, was just knowing Lori's story. I mean, Lori, and knowing the person that she's become and who she is. And by no means would she ever, she would want her daughter back for sure. I mean, I know that. Though the way she leans on her faith in God, the way that she has memorialized her daughter in the form of creating butterfly moments and journaling. And I mean, she's really one of a kind. And I'm not one of a kind because you're all going to learn from her and you're going to be like her, right? When I met Lori for the first time, I thought, this is a woman that I want to be like when I grow up. So knowing the kind of person that she has continued her life to be and to grow into, she, even after she had such a tragic loss, has been very inspiring to me. And if anybody can get through, the passing of their family member, their parent, their pet, if you know Lori's story and you know what she does and teaches to process through that and come out on the other side of it, with gratitude and beauty and blessing others, then we all can. And so with that, I just want to say, Lori, thank you for agreeing to allow me to have you on with our video for the book, and please share what you do, what you've done, in the face of tragedy and loss.
Yeah, as well, and just thank you for your kind words. I know when I was in the midst of that powerful emotion that we call grief, I looked for people that seemed okay after they had experienced a grief. It's almost like, you're a little higher up on the mountain through time, not always processing, but you're looking for somebody else that looks like they're doing okay or living their life. And you think, okay, if they can do it, I can do it. And it happened to me that way too, where I was looking for people who were absolutely ahead of the game for me. And I talked to a lot of people back then at the time, and what happened is my 16-year-old daughter was killed in a car accident. It was very innocent. There was no playing around or drugs or alcohol. In fact, the highway patrolman that had taken some of her belongings when she was taken to the taken by ambulance, they took some of the belongings out of the car and had them for us. And when they gave us Jennifer's purse, she still had little valentines in there from her friends at school. And he said, when we normally open up a purse after an accident like that, you may see drugs or marijuana or stuff that probably the parents don't want to see. But this is the most innocent little purse that they had ever had. And it did make me feel really good, and she also had some of her, verses in there that she was memorizing, and just, she was a good kid, and they always say, "Why is it the good ones that die young?" Or, "Why her?" We all would ask that in our scenario, no matter who is leaving us, or has left. You always just kinda think, "Why me? Why them? Why now?" And all of those kinds of questions, and they do need to be resolved in some way, which is where you ultimately want to get, which is through that feeling of acceptance, that, "No, I I would not want to not have lost my daughter, but I do feel I'm a better person today than I was prior to her death. If I could have her back, I would take her back in a second. But, I also know she wouldn't wanna come back. I already know that just knowing my faith and where she is and what she's been up to all these years, um, I know she wouldn't wanna come back, and as a mom, I wouldn't want her to come back selfishly just for me. But at the same time, man, I'd give a whole lot just to spend a day with her for sure. Yeah. And so I thank
Like
you,
you.
Caprice,
Can I reach
for
through the screen and just give you a big, huge hug? Can you wrap your arms around your shoulders and squeeze?
yes, yes. Um, it's been now, though, a very long time. So if you are new in your grief and you're thinking, I'm never going to be able to talk about it like that, I'm never going to feel that way, I'm never going to get my joy back or peace. Certainly, for me, it was a struggle to find solid ground and find peace again, even though I'm a person of faith. And I don't want you to ever feel shame or blame yourself or feel guilty for any part of your feelings. That's one, I think, very serious concept that if somebody had told me that early on and that it was okay to laugh and smile even though it hurt really bad, I think those kinds of practical tips, if somebody had told me early on, I don't know if I would have listened or been able to embrace it. But I had all the feelings except anger. I don't know why I never felt anger. That is part of the process generally. Um, but I just have never felt that feeling of anger and mad at God or any of those things. Although I've had some heart-to-heart talks, like, "Why her?" Yeah,
Mhm.
she was such a good kid. I remember all these children, uh, at her high school that came to the viewing that we had before she was buried, and, many of them said, "Why her? She was such a good kid." And kind and gentle, and maybe that's why. My dad said it best, I think. He said, "She's been spared all the heartache that we face on a day-to-day, with all of the things that happen in life."
Mhm.
And I have wrapped my head around that idea that, yeah, she was spared because she was so good.
Mhm.
We're all good. She wasn't any different than any other kid, um, except to me, of course. To me, it's different, special and delightful, and, oh, she can make me laugh. But if I could help you by encouraging you to write down things, that you're going through, and in my chapter, when you read it, I have some prompts for you that are not the normal prompts that somebody might give for somebody who's grieving. But they've been and have become very meaningful to me in my prayer time. They're not a one and done kind of prompt. They're general in some ways, but if you have a heart to heart talk with God in your prayer time and in your journaling, I think you will find that these will bring you peace. And
Mhm.
ultimately, I think you want to feel loved. You want to make sure you're feeling like your life is okay again. If there is an okay, a new norm, a different way of living, because you're gonna have these insights that a lot of people don't have, because they haven't lost somebody, or like Caprice mentioned, sometimes these deaths are tumultuous. My first husband and I, who we were married at the time, had very different grief experiences. And I really believe not only were we different people, not only do men grieve differently than women, his last interaction with her was horrible.
Mhm.
Whereas mine, I had had the best weekend ever with her, and it was just a special memory that I wouldn't let go of, and I will never let go of because it was just so special. And, if you've had a difficult moment before your loved one has departed this earth, go back to a better memory and grab onto that one, and don't dwell on the negative things that you may be remembering. Just latch on to the good. And I think it will serve you in a way that you can't even imagine. And I did see this with him somewhat because whenever he would talk about his last interaction, I would guide him to a more positive interaction that he had had with her. And it really did make a difference. And I would give that little tidbit of advice if your loved one left in a difficult way or your relationship with them was difficult, then reframe it and make it different. You can write that story any way you want it. It doesn't have to end in a way that didn't work out, if you know what I mean.
And on that in that vein, I remember, my dad was getting dementia and he was in a lot of pain. And there were moments where, my mom and dad, who had a 56-year blissful marriage, from all all angles, it was an amazing relationship. I felt like I was having marriage counseling sessions with my mom and dad. Mom, do you still love dad? Dad, do you still love mom? Just because it's hard on the caregiver, and when someone's in so much pain, they're not always nice. I myself had some interactions that were very frustrating that I wish I could have erased in the last 6 months. And we just have to understand that it's, in the face of that kind of, you're talking about a sudden tragic death. I'm talking about a kind of a slow decline. But
Mhm.
you do have to just set aside. Those things happen. You're not changing that. But boy, are we just loving the memories, all the memories that we created, the good memories. And it's not worth focusing on the ones that may not have been as good as you'd like. So I love the way you stated that, Lori, and that
Oh,
definitely helps going into, you know, the next phase of life without the person that you've lost. So, and that
well,
lastly, we have another minute. Tell me a little bit about your journaling, like how journaling impacted your impacted you, as you were dealing with your loss.
I had tried journaling in the past prior to losing Jennifer, because I have had some childhood trauma and had gone to therapy and tried writing letters to people that had harmed me and different kinds of things like that. But I could never quite get past, you know, a diary entry versus a journal entry versus how do you do this ongoing? I wanted to tie it to my prayer life as well in Bible study, and I didn't really know. I didn't have a firm practice prior to losing Jennifer. And after my daughter passed away, I've also lost both of my parents. And so, again, grief re enters your life, and it's a new experience yet again. And what I discovered is most of my journaling is in the way of a prayer where I will either just be grateful for what is happening in my life, or if something's troubling me, I will start to write about what's troubling me, how it's troubling me, and asking God to give me some insights. And for some reason, He talks through my pen. I can't figure out how it works, but I do know it does work that way. So sometimes you might just want to start with a favorite verse in the Bible that's comforting to you and write that out and then say, Lord, how do you want me to see this today? Do you
Mhm.
have something new that you want me to glean from this passage? And out of these just questions, asking God, I think sometimes our prayers are like, just make the pain go away, bring them
Mhm.
back, a million kinds of things that are requests. But when I found myself is when I'm just open to listening what God wants to tell me and not so much asking for things, although I do ask for things too. You need to ask sometimes. But a lot of times I just wait and thoughts come to me that I know are not my thoughts. I just know they're not. And you kind of get to hear that still quiet voice that is such a comfort. And out of that just stems a peace that is that peace that they talk about that is just beyond understanding.
Mhm. Mhm. To close, I'll share a little story about a way that we keep my dad's spirit alive or around us per se. He
Yeah.
was an avid gardener,
Mhm.
and just his backyard. I mean, we just the memories of him tending to his garden, his yard. It was always his favorite place. He loved birds and animals, and as he in the last year, his garden had to let it go because he couldn't tend to it. And so it's not a huge plot. It's not a farm. It's a residential area, but a nice large plot on the side of their house. So we got it all prepared to replant. And so the day after the funeral or the services, celebration of life, the family, his grandkids, his kids, his wife, we all went out to the side and we planted seeds in the garden to
Oh,
regrow his garden. So it's a place that I do like to go. There's something so special about it, and it's so great to see the vegetables growing again. It's like he's still feeding us.
yeah.
And I go in there, and there's this old chair in the garden, and I sit, and that's where I have prayer time. And
Yeah.
I feel like he's right there, on the right side of, sitting there with the Lord. And it just really fills me up to know that he's in heaven. And he
Yeah.
wasn't a believer, for a long time. And I think that in the end, he knew that number one, I wanted him to be there.
So
But you get to a point in where you think, where am I going? I wasn't born to, be born, go through life's challenges, all the good things, and then just die and be buried in the dirt. I mean, that's just not,
yeah,
I can't
yeah,
see that as a possibility at all. So
mm,
I felt the chaplain in the end said that she was confident based on conversations that he was with God. So
I love
so I, that brings me so much joy, and just being able to sit in that garden where he and God are growing food that can still provide for our family was just such a
yeah.
symbolic and gesture, for his life and
And you
his
I
life
think
in
it is
heaven.
important. Yes, I'm
Yeah,
sorry I cut you off there,
that's
but I
okay.
do think it's so important to create an environment that brings you peace, that connects you to your loved one.
Mhm.
I raise monarch butterflies. It's a whole thing in my life, and I won't tell you all of that. But what I've done in doing that is I just saw one before coming in here a little while ago. I walked outside to take the puppy outside, and a butterfly went flying by. It's a little late in the season, so I'm not seeing them every day now. And I've created an environment that brings me peace. And when I see a butterfly, I just know, or a hummingbird, that's kind of for my mom. Poor dad doesn't have anything. We we never identified something for him, so maybe it will come one day. But I always just feel like if my mom's there and my daughter's there, he must be there too, because he would not let them out of his sight. But you create that environment that brings you peace, that reminds you in a good way about your loved one, and you will reclaim your peace and connection that will never go away. It will never go away. And that in itself will bring you peace.
Well, thank you, Lori, for
Thank you.
co-filming with me today and
Yes,
sharing
thank
your
you.
story along with mine. And thank you to all the readers of this book. Thank you to Grace Richardson for creating it. And thank you to our
Yes,
loved ones past, for
so
being such amazing influences in our life and allowing us to share and pass on gems of wisdom that we've learned, from you and through you.
thank you. And this is such an honoring way to again take those memories of your dad, my daughter, and I even think of my parents too, and elevate them to help other people, because I truly believe you don't go through anything in life without almost an obligation that at some point, maybe not when you're in the midst of your grief, but at some point, passing it along to others so that they can have the peace and the knowledge that you have today when it comes to grief or anything else for that matter. Thank you for having me and including me in your video, Caprice. I so
Absolutely.
appreciate you.